Everyone knows Caesar as a brilliant general and the great ruler of Rome. But that's just the glossy cover. Under it lies a story of monstrous debts, plundered peoples, and betrayal. A story about a man who became a true thief, stealing an entire republic from Rome. In this video, you'll learn the dark secrets of Caesar that won't show up in your school books. Let's dig in. Young Caesar isn't a dictator. He's a reckless kid who keeps sticking his nose where it doesn't belong and gets away with it through sheer audacity. Rome is buzzing. Old senators grip the reins of power. The streets are like an open-air market noise, brawls, rumors. And there he is, skinny, smirking, stubborn. People tell him, "Sit down, don't stick out." And he goes straight against the current. Back then, Rome had turned into a meat grinder. General Sulla, old, ruthless, power-drunk, had seized control. He launched a real purge. Anyone against him was either killed, stripped of everything, or flung out of the city. But in this political slaughterhouse, Caesar immediately sided with the People's Party. On top of that, he married the daughter of their top leader. For the new Roman strongman Sulla, that was a red rag to a bull. Sulla summoned Caesar and gave him an ultimatum: divorce her, or I'll destroy you. Anyone else would have broken. Caesar looked the dictator in the eye and said, no. That very night, he became an enemy of the state. They took everything from him and put him on a wanted list. The hunt began. Caesar fled Rome, changing hideouts, until one night Sulla's soldiers burst into his shed. They tied him up and were ready to execute him. But Caesar did what he did best. He negotiated. He handed the commander every last coin he had, just to buy himself one more day of life. Back in Rome, his relatives barely managed to beg Sulla to spare the boy. The dictator grudgingly agreed, but threw out a line that proved prophetic. Take him. But remember, in this one lad, there are 100 like me. One day, he'll destroy everything you're trying to protect. And Caesar drops off the radar. He joins the army, and for several years, his biography is one big blank spot. We don't know exactly where he fought, but we know the kind of man who came back. And beyond that, Caesar is kidnapped by sea pirates. They demand a ransom. Anyone else would tremble and keep quiet. Caesar laughs in their faces. You're asking too little. I'm worth more. He raises his own ransom. By day, he recites poetry to them. By night, he plans revenge. They let him go, and he comes back with men, catches the pirates, and has them executed. Harsh? Yes. But that's Caesar to the core. He doesn't lash out in hysteria. He delivers on a promise like it's a checklist item. The man who applauded Caesar at the pirate's funeral would, a few years later, be holding a dagger over his chest. Who was it? We'll return to him at the end. Caesar returned to Rome riding a wave of fame. But his swagger and the crowd's love drove the old senators mad. They saw a threat and decided to squeeze the upstart. His first war began, not against barbarians, but against his own politicians. The pirate episode turned Caesar into a rock star in Rome. The people buzzed. That's our guy. Didn't chicken out and crush them all. But the Senate elders hissed. This upstart is too dangerous. They had no idea how right they were. Caesar grasped the main law of power. The crowd loves a show and a strong hand. So he started giving them both. He didn't just hold offices, he bought them. He plunged into insane debt to put on the most spectacular gladiator games. So much so that his creditors were ready to sell him into slavery. He put everything on the line just to make the crowd chant his name. He didn't climb the career ladder, he hacked it, leaping rungs with hype and bribes. They say in Spain, staring at a statue of Alexander the Great, he nearly burst into tears. That guy, at my age, already ruled the world, he said, and I'm still wasting time on this mouse scramble in the Senate. His ambition was tearing him apart, but he understood. You can't break the system alone. At the time, Rome had two other heavyweights. First, Gnaeus Pompey, a great general, a hero adored by the army. But the Senate kept telling him to get lost and denied him the power he deserved. An old lion, locked in a cage. Second, Marcus Crassus, the richest bastard in Rome, an oligarch with more money than the entire city combined. But he had cash, not real fame or respect. And Caesar, like a genius producer, saw an opening to form a political supergroup. He went to these two embittered men and basically said, "Guys, one by one, those senatorial rats will eat us alive. Pompey, you've got the army. Crassus, you've got the money. I've got the brains and the love of the crowd. Let's team up and just take it all." Thus, the first triumvirate was born, an unwritten pact. Basically, a crew that took over the whole republic. They unofficially split Rome 3 ways, and the main prize for Caesar in this deal was Gaul, wild, restless lands to the north. To the senators, it was exile, a hole on the map. To Caesar, it was the jackpot. He didn't need gladiator shows anymore. He needed his own real war, his own army, his own legend. Caesar needed his own war, and he got it. He arrived in Gaul not as a governor, but as a predator on the hunt. He just needed a pretext, and he found one. Some tribe of barbarians decided to move from one place to another. Caesar blew this up into a threat to Rome and flipped on war god mode. And it wasn't just a brawl. It was 9 years of pure genius and brutality. While senators in Rome wagged their tongues, Caesar built bridges across the Rhine in 10 days, just to show the tribes there were no barriers for him. He played tribes against each other, made alliances, and then broke them. He wasn't a commander, he was the director of this bloody theater. The show's climax was the siege of Alesia. All of Gaul united against him under one leader, Vercingetorix. They locked themselves in a fortress on a hill. What did Caesar do? He built a giant wall 11 miles long around them so no one could escape. Then, when he learned a huge relief army was coming, he built a second wall outside. He ended up trapped between 2 fires, starving enemies inside, fresh and furious ones outside. He crafted a double ring of hell around himself. And in that hell, he managed to fight off everyone and simply waited until the defenders in the fortress began to eat each other. It wasn't just victory, it was humiliation. Caesar single-handedly broke the back of an entire people. And the most brilliant part, he ran the first ever live blog from the front. His commentaries on the Gallic War weren't written for historians. He wrote them in plain language for ordinary Romans. It was a genius PR move. While he was cutting down barbarians, his PR machine in Rome turned him into a living legend. But while Caesar became a legend, Rome was already preparing to dump him. His supergroup fell apart. Crassus, the money bag, died on campaign. And Pompey, the old lion, switched to the Senate side. They were scared that Caesar had become too powerful. They sent him an ultimatum: disband your army and return to Rome as a private citizen. Everyone knew what that meant. Come and stick your neck under the axe. Caesar marched with his army to the river Rubicon, the border of Italy. Crossing it with troops meant declaring war on his own country. This was a one-way ticket. Either he'd become the ruler of Rome, or his head would end up on a stake. Looking at that muddy water, he said his famous line, "The die is cast," and gave the order to move forward. The civil war had begun. It was a clash of titans. Pompey, the great hero of the past, against Caesar, the new rock star. Pompey had more men, more ships, the support of the entire Senate. Caesar had a band of killers tempered by 9 years of slaughtermen who believed in him like a god. The decisive battle at Pharsalus. Pompey was sure of victory. But Caesar outplayed everyone again. He hit a few thousand of his best fighters in reserve, and, at the critical moment, struck exactly where no one expected. Pompey's elite cavalry broke, and with it, the entire army crumbled. The great Pompey, hero of Rome, fled the field in panic. He sailed to Egypt, hoping to find refuge there. But the local petty kings, eager to curry favor with Caesar, butchered him like a sheep right on the shore. When Caesar was presented with the head of his former friend and son-in-law, he didn't rejoice. He cried. This wasn't triumph. It was horror. He'd won, but the price of that victory was terrible. Caesar storms into Egypt, and there's a mini Game of Thrones playing out. A young queen, Cleopatra, is fighting for the throne against her little brother. She understands. Her only chance is to back the new boss of the world, Caesar. Legend says she was smuggled into his quarters, rolled up in a carpet. But it wasn't about the carpet. It was that this girl wasn't just beautiful. She was a brilliant player. She knew what a man who has everything actually wants. He wants an equal, and Caesar found one. He didn't just help. He arrived like the new owner, crushed the opposition, smashed her brother's army, and placed Cleopatra on the throne. And along the way, they didn't just start a romance. They forged a political alliance, sealed by the birth of a son, Caesarion, a living heir, half Roman, half Pharaoh. When Cleopatra came to Rome, the senators nearly choked on their rage. This upstart hadn't just become the most powerful man in the world. He dragged along a queen and a bastard, with claims to divine blood. That was too much. After finishing off his remaining enemies in Africa and Spain, Caesar returned to Rome. But victory is only half the deal. Now, he had to rebuild this broken world to his own design. And he started acting not like a politician, but like a programmer, fixing every bug in an old, glitchy system. He literally fixed time itself by introducing the new Julian calendar, the one we still use today with tweaks. It wasn't just a calendar, it was a message. Now I decide when your tomorrow begins. He started handing out Roman citizenship left and right, turning enemies into allies. Then he packed the Senate with these very new Romans. For the old aristocracy, this was a disaster. Their elite, members-only club was suddenly letting in country bumpkins. He wrote off the debts of the poor and gave land to his soldiers. He didn't just pass reforms, he bought the loyalty of the army and the people, making them permanently indebted to him personally. And the cherry on top, his famous mercy. He pardoned his enemies, the very senators who had fought against him. But this wasn't kindness. It was the highest form of humiliation. I beat you, and you're so insignificant I won't even bother killing you. Live and never forget who's boss. The old Roman boys' club got the message. He wouldn't stop. He was going to tear down their world to the foundations. So they decided to act on the principle. Kill one to save the system. They formed a conspiracy. And the worst part at the center of that plot was Marcus Junius Brutus, the guy Caesar loved like a son, whom he forgave for fighting on Pompey's side, whom he helped climb the ladder. On the Ides of March, Caesar's wife, Calpurnia, begged him in hysterics not to go to the Senate. She'd had a nightmare that he was killed. He brushed her off. The man who had conquered the world didn't fear bad dreams. In the Senate, they surrounded him. First under the pretense of a petition, and then one of them whipped out a dagger and stabbed him in the back. Caesar turned, ready to fight, but immediately took another blow, and another. He fought them off until he saw Brutus's face among the killers. In that moment, he stopped resisting. He just looked at him and spoke the line, You too, Brutus. There was no question in it, only the pain of the most famous betrayal in history. Brutus was the very one who had applauded Caesar after the pirate's execution. Caesar pulled his toga over his face and collapsed, bleeding out at the foot of the statue of his fiercest enemy, Pompey. Thus ended the game of the greatest player in Rome's history. He outplayed everyone: barbarians, senators, kings, and dictators. But he lost to those he had spared and considered his own. And so it turns out, Caesar didn't just steal money or land. He stole from an entire people their republic. He stole the very idea that power might belong not to one man, but to everyone. In that sense, he truly is the greatest thief in history.